Hey, my name's Trevor. I have over 13 years in the live sound industry, and I'm going to be doing a video series on the basics of audio mixing. Today we're going to be going over the basics of audio compressors, what they are, how to use them, and how you can implement them in your mix today. As always, when we're talking about audio, it's recommended that you wear headphones so that you can hear all the small changes that we make. I got mine right here. The type of headphone honestly doesn't matter as long as you know how they sound. I've been mixing on these for a couple months now, so I know exactly how they sound. So let's get started. On the screen in front of us, we have two audio signals. One of them is not compressed and one of them is compressed. So when we're talking about compression, we're talking about squeezing down that dynamic range. So you can see here, these peaks that are going way above everything else are getting trimmed down here. So we're squeezing down that signal and making it more uniform across the whole span. We're getting rid of these ginormous peaks and compressing it down into something more manageable. First compressor, it's an Emo D5 from Waves, and we're going to talk about the main components of a compressor. So the main components are your threshold, which you have right here, your attack time, your release time, and your ratio. Your threshold says when is your compressor going to start reducing the signal. If you have it too low, you're going to squash everything that's coming into that compressor. On the other side, if you have it too high, you're not going to be compressing anything. So you got to find when just those peaks are getting in there, and then you get some gain reduction from the compressor. The ratio is saying how many decibels of input versus how many decibels of output. So in all compressors, it is a number to 1. Right now we're at 5. So 5 decibels in, 1 decibel out. Once that threshold is passed, for every 5 dBs above it, 1 dB comes out. 1 to 1. So 1 dB in, 1 dB out, which means no compression whatsoever. And then as you go up, you're going to start getting more compression. 2 dBs in, 1 dB out. 3, 4, this one goes all the way up to 20. So when you get into like those higher numbers, you're getting more towards limiting than compressing. A lot of the compressors we're going to be talking about today are about a 3 to 1 ratio. 3 decibels in, 1 dB out. 6 decibels in, 2 decibels out. Next is our attack time. Normally these are in milliseconds, but they can go all the way down to microseconds. The attack time is how long after we pass this threshold do we start compressing. The lower the number, the faster the attack, which means like in 0.5 of a millisecond after this is passed, we're going to be compressing. And this one goes all the way up to 300 milliseconds after it passes, it starts reducing. So we're going to bring this back down. Attack times are going to vary depending on what you're compressing and how you want the sound to be. If you want that initial hit to come through on like a snare or a kick, you're going to want a little longer of an attack time, but not super long, 14 to 20-ish. Again, we'll hear that here in a little bit. If you don't want that, quicker attack time. Then we have the release. After our signal passes back under the threshold, how long until we bring the volume back up and stop all the compression. Different compressors have different release times. Some are fixed, some are variable, some you can change, some are automatic. Faster release means it's going to come back up to normal faster. Longer release means it's going to hold that compression down and slowly bring it back up. On a drum set, if your release time is too slow, then you're still going to be compressing by the time that second hit comes through, and you're going to miss the transients at the very beginning of the hit. Too fast and it might not sound natural. It's playing around, and it also depends on the type of music you're mixing. Faster music, you might need faster releases because those transients are going to be dead because that compressor is still enacting. Slower music, you can probably get away with longer release times. On some compressors, you're also going to have a knee. The knee is changing up this area where the threshold hits. If you have a softer knee, it's like a range where your compressor activates. The harder the knee, it's like you have to pass this specific threshold. Where on like a softer knee, you can start your compression a little bit earlier than if you get over the limit that you're looking for. So you can see how that knee hardens up versus the softer. Again, everything with compression is what it sounds like to the ear and making sure it sounds natural and what you're looking for. Okay, now that we've gone over the basic controls of a compressor, we will go ahead and start playing back this snare drum, and we'll put in a compressor, we'll change some parameters, we'll turn it off, and we'll hear the differences that it's making. This is no compression. we're going to be listening for that very first part of that hit. So you see how that deadened down a little bit? We're getting a pretty heavy gain reduction here. We're only on a 3-to-1 ratio. Turn it off. So you can hear how when we have that compressor in, we're making that initial transient on the snare drum a bit softer. So now let's try changing that attack time. So you hear that transient coming back in. So now we aren't compressing that initial hit, we're compressing the body of the snare after the hit. So you can also see how when we did that, our compressor gain reduction went down drastically. We're not getting as much gain reduction since the attack time was so high. Play it again. Bring it down way low. Now we're missing everything. Now it's too fast. As soon as that hits, we're compressing everything all the way down. So we're missing the whole attack of the snare. Somewhere right in this range is going to be the best. We still get the initial attack of the snare, but it's not making your ears bleed. In, out. In, out. So the other thing we don't want to do is increase the volume too much or decrease the volume. Over here, we have an output control, and we can add makeup gain to this plugin after the compression. So we are adding 4.2 dBs after the compression because when we're compressing, we're bringing that volume down. So if I bring it back down to 0 and we play with it out, in, you can see how much quieter that is. But we don't want to lose all the volume. So we're going to bring it up about the amount that we're compressing down. And a good way to know how much you need, turn it on, hear it, turn it off, hear it, make sure they sound similar. And that is a basic compressor. Thank you so much, and I hope you learned something today. Be sure to like and subscribe, and watch out for part 2, where we compare multiple compressors against the same audio source, coming soon.